earlier we have understood how to dispatch an event with a custom name, with a name given to it. Now, how do I send a message to it? So this is sending an event without details, without any details. Now what I want this time, send a message to the parent. This time I want to send an event with a information in it or a message in it. How do we do that? Let's go ahead and do that. Again, create an event and dispatch that event. So I'll go ahead and start writing the syntax. I'm creating a new custom event. This time, along with the name, what I'll do, I'm using the same message. The reason being, I'll comment out this code, this line number 13, once I have this custom event properly written. Now, since we are just setting the name of the custom event, what I'll do, I'll go ahead and create one payload here. What does that payload would have? This payload is nothing but it's a message that it is taking from our child to the parent. So in that payload, I'll define detail. This detail would be carrying the message that I want to send it to the parent. So what is the message that I wanted to send it to the parent? In case if you want to set anything, you can go ahead and do that. For time being, what I'll do, I'll hard code this message saying that this message is coming from child. And I'm hard coding. I'm just using this hard coded message on this property and use this property to send that information. And then put a semicolon. Now, to reiterate what we have done, we are using the same syntax that we have used earlier, where I'm dispatching an event. Inside that event, I'm sending a custom event with a name. So this event is what the parent would be listening to. Now, since I'm just sending an event without any message, parent is not able to read any information from the event that I'm sending it to it. Now, how do I send an event? So that is where along with creating a custom event, I'm sending a payload here. That payload has a detail as an attribute where I'm setting that detail with the message that I am hard coding here. This message is something that I'm setting to this variable, to this property, and I'm sending this property along with this custom event. Since I do not want two events to be sent, I'm just commenting out the previous event that we have. So this is one change that I have done. On the parent, what are the changes that I'll do? Since I know that once the custom event is been fired, right, this component would be listening to it. Once that event has been received, this function would be invoked and this logic would be executed. Instead of just writing a console log here, let's look for that message that is coming from our child. What is that we are receiving from the child? We are receiving an event from the child. So in order to get the information from the child, the syntax that I can use here is event.detail, right? Because that is what we are sending, right? So what I'll do for time being, I'll append it to this console log that we are doing. So that way we would understand, okay, this is the value that we are getting. And now I can make changes on this parent component. So since there are a couple of changes on both the components, so let's deploy both parent component as well as the child component. So I'm going back to the Salesforce screen, do a hard refresh. I'll click on this button. And if you see here, earlier we're just getting a console log. This time, if you see, the event has been received inside the parent handler message from child. This message is coming from child. This is the value that we are sending from the child as well. So that means it is working. Again, look for the details that we have on the right hand side to understand from where this message is, where the console logs are being printed. So this is one way of debugging your issue in case if you are not able to understand from where the message is coming from. Look for the details on the right hand side. Now, since I have understood that how it is working, let's make a couple of changes on the HTML page. I'll be printing that message that we are getting from the child on the parent component. Message from the child. I'll just create one placeholder here which says message from the child, and I'll be creating one property which would display that information. Currently, I have not created it. Let's go ahead and do that as well. All right. So this would be set from the message that I'm receiving from the child component. So I'll just say this is my property. This would be set to blank initially or empty value. Since I know that this value is coming from the child, I'll fill that information from the child. This message from the child should be populated from where? This event that we are receiving from the child here. So what is that value that I want to populate? I want to populate with the event detail information that we are receiving from the child. So this is what is happening upon receiving the event. So we are printing this console log. Parallelly, whatever the value that we are getting from the child, we are setting that value to this property and we are displaying that property on the front end. In order to make things look neat, let's add lightning card, which is completely optional. I'm just doing it so that way it would be clearly understood that yes, we are getting this message and the buttons from the respective components. So I'm just moving this entire code that I have into a card, and I'll give the title as parent component. All right. So in our child also, in case if you want, you can go ahead and add a similar lightning card. All right. So just move this end of this card after this button. All right. I'll just also add a footer just to indicate that where is my footer actually ending on my child component, or where is my child component actually ending once it is enclosed in the parent component. Right, I'm just making use of that syntax. I'll say this as child footer. I do not want it as a tag, so I'll just have it as a text here. Right, so we have things ready. Now what I'll do, I'll save these changes. Since there are changes on both the child and the parent component, let's deploy them. Once your parent and child components are deployed once, you can deploy them in any order. But for the first time, make sure that you're deploying your child component first, followed by your parent. So both the components are deployed. Let's switch to our Salesforce org. Do a hard refresh on the case record. Now, if you see here, this gives us a clear understanding of which component belongs to which section. So this section is for your child component, where we have the footer also indicating the same thing. So this is your child component, and the one that is enclosing this child component is your parent component. Right, now let's reduce the size of this console log, clear the console logs that are generated earlier. All right, so this text is from the Parent LWC, which you already know, and this is the title that we have given. Same is the case for your child component. When I click on the button that is there on the child, what is happening? This is creating an event, followed by it is dispatching that event. Now what is happening? This parent is looking for any events that have been fired from the child component. So once an event has been fired, it has a handler on the JS file that is picking up the message that has been sent from the parent. So once that message is been sent, what we are doing? We are displaying one message on the parent component. So this ends my child component. In case if you want, you can move this to this section also. And what is the message that we are printing? This message is coming from the child. Remember, this value is something that we have set in the child component in the property, and that message has been sent to the parent. This is how you would send messages from your child back to the parent. In the parent to child communication, it was easy. All you need to do is expose a property with API decorator where you can set that values from the parent to the child, whereas the communication from the child to the parent is little different, where you need to do a 3-step process of creating an event, dispatching an event. On the parent, you need to write a handler to handle the message that you are receiving from the child. That brings us to the end of this section where we have looked at how to pass the information or how do you communicate from the child to the parent.